Welcome to the Rare Wellness Podcast. Pressures of this modern life, society, and world often lead us to unhealthy lifestyles where wellness is a rare treasure hidden in a maze of daily challenges. This podcast will illuminate uncommon pathways of health and vitality, exploring cutting-edge ideas in regenerative, longevity, and performance medicine, all delivered in bite-sized segments of 5 minutes or less. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie Lewis, and today we're going to be diving into a sexy topic, visceral fat. What it is, why it's dangerous, and what you can do to reduce it. This podcast is brought to you by the Northwest Center for Regenerative and Performance Medicine, located in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. Visit us online at www.c4rpm.com. Visceral fat is one of the most important and most misunderstood indicators of metabolic health. While most people think of fat as the soft tissue just beneath the skin, visceral fat is something very different. It's fat stored deep inside the abdomen, wrapped around the organs, like the liver, pancreas. And unlike subcutaneous fat, which is mostly inert, visceral fat is metabolically active. Visceral fat functions like a hormone-producing organ. It releases inflammatory cytokines, alters metabolism, and disrupts normal hormone signaling. A major scientific position paper from Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology notes that visceral fat and ectopic fat behave as independent and often more precise cardiometabolic risk markers than body mass index alone. In other words, where your body stores fat matters more than how much you weigh. Why is visceral fat dangerous? Well, visceral fat impacts health in several major ways. One, chronic inflammation. Visceral fat secretes inflammatory mediators like IL-6 and TNF-alpha, contributing to chronic inflammation linked to heart disease, diabetes, and even some cancers. Two, insulin resistance. When visceral fat begins infiltrating the liver, it contributes to insulin resistance and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, now one of the most common causes of chronic liver disease. And three, hormone disruption. Visceral fat acts like an endocrine organ and lowers testosterone in men and disrupts estrogen balance in women and interferes with normal cortisol rhythms. 4. Increased cardiometabolic risk. The Framingham Heart Study demonstrated that higher visceral fat levels are associated with increased risk of heart disease, stroke, and early mortality, independent of body mass index. This is why two people with the same weight may have vastly different health outcomes. The distribution of fat is what matters most. How do you know if you have too much visceral fat? You can't see visceral fat from the outside. Even people who look thin may carry excess visceral fat, a phenomenon known as TOFI, thin outside, fat inside. More accurate ways to assess include a body composition scan, such as a DEXA or InBody, waist circumference, men greater than 40 inches or women greater than 35 inches, are metabolic markers such as elevated fasting glucose, high triglycerides, low HDL, and elevated fasting insulin. These are all evidence of visceral fat accumulation and any evidence of fatty liver on labs or imaging. How to reduce visceral fat via evidence-based strategies? Here's the good news. Visceral fat is highly responsive to lifestyle changes and often the first type of fat your body burns when you begin improving your metabolic health. So first, prioritize your sleep. A randomized controlled inpatient trial found that restricting healthy adults to less than 4 hours of sleep per night for 14 days significantly increased visceral abdominal fat compared to sleeping 9 hours, largely due to increased caloric intake and disruption in energy balance. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of high quality consistent sleep. 2. Strength training and high intensity exercise. Resistance training improves insulin sensitivity and increases muscle mass. Two powerful tools for reducing visceral fat. A meta-analysis shows that high intensity interval training, or HIIT, is particularly effective at reducing visceral fat. And 3. Reduce dietary carbohydrate loads. Randomized trials show that very low carbohydrate diets tend to be greater reducers of visceral adipose tissue than high carbohydrate, low fat diets, likely through improvement in insulin sensitivity that lowers circulating insulin levels. This doesn't mean that extreme dieting is the way. It means that being smart about the carbohydrate quality and quantity. 4. Medications and supplements. Omega-3 fatty acids help reduce inflammation and may reduce liver fat. Vitamin D optimization is associated with healthier body composition and lower fat in observational studies, and GLP-1 receptor agonists such as tirzepatide has been shown in randomized trials to reduce visceral adipose tissue in adults with overweight obesity. 5. Manage chronic stress. Elevated cortisol promotes visceral fat storage. Stress reduction practices like breath work, meditation, or simply setting healthier boundaries can meaningfully help. The bottom line, visceral fat is one of the most dangerous, but also one of the most reversible components of metabolic dysfunction. By improving sleep, nutrition, exercise, and hormone balance, your body naturally shifts away from storing visceral fat towards improving health and vitality. At Northwest Center for Regenerative and Performance Medicine, we help our patients measure and reduce visceral fat using evidence-based strategies tailored to their individual physiology. Thank you for joining me today at the Rare Wellness Podcast. If you found value in today's episode or learned something new, please subscribe, leave a review, or share this podcast with a friend. Your support helps us to contribute free content to empower you on your journey to better health. Again, this is Dr. Jamie Lewis reminding you that your body holds incredible potential to heal, thrive, and perform. Sometimes it just needs the right tools to unlock its full potential and help you live your best life now. We'll see you next time.